As the head of landscape architecture at the Knowlton School, I have the distinct pleasure to introduce tonight's lecturer, Dominique Ghiggi. Dominique is the 2019 Glimcher Distinguished Visiting Professor, a position established through the generosity of Herb and Didi Glimcher. Each year, we invite a landscape architect to interact with students and faculty. This is a fantastic opportunity, as the flexibility of the professorship allows us to support faculty research, expand on seminars and studios, as well as hone on a particular topical issue. In the past few years, we have had the chance to work with a broad range of practitioners, some emerging and others very established. These have included Walter Hood, the recent MacArthur Genius Grant recipient from Berkeley, from Boston, and Shannon Guthrie from GGN in Seattle. We have also invited landscape architects graphically, and in doing so have invited of students on different forms of practice. A few years ago, we had Michel Harris and João Nunes from Lisbon. This year, we have the pleasure of welcoming Dominique Ghiggi from. Dominique Ghiggi studied biology before pursuing a master's in the landscape architecture program established by Christophe Giraud at the ETH in Zurich. She has brought her dual background of scientist and designer to every project since then. In the early 2000s, she worked with Swiss landscape architect Vogt, who most notably on the recreation of a fragment of the Mazoala rainforest of Madagascar in the Zurich Zoo. She subsequently collaborated with Vogt, other designers, historians, and scientists. I'm really trying to keep my concentration here, but it's pretty hard. on the book Tree Nurseries, Cultivating the Urban Jungle. I discovered the book several years ago in a bookstore in Basel and was painstakingly trying to figure out the German, which my level of German is very, very bad. When I found out from Dominique that the book all along had been in English, which was embarrassing moment number 452. Tree Nurseries, Cultivating the Urban Jungle cuts across the themes of climate change, memory, colonialism, poetics, and greed, to offer a very compelling account of the history and recent developments of the production of trees. From the English plant hunters in the 1800s to the contemporary craze for large trees as status symbol in China, the book draws on scientific research, maps tree migrations, and examines the cultural landscape of nursery hotspots such as Boskop in the Netherlands and Pistoia in Italy. Finally, it offers a structure for this year's Glimcher Landscape Seminar, focusing on the link, seldom acknowledged, between tree production, plant research, and landscape practice. Dominique Ghiggi's design practice straddles scientific pragmatism and art. In 2009, she founded the firm Anton & Ghiggi Landschaft architektur with a Catalonian architect, and last year launched her own studio, Ghiggi Paesaggi, whose title brings to the fore her Italian-Swiss roots. Her office assembles landscape architects, and biologists. She has had projects in Senegal and across Switzerland, and has collaborated with artists and scientists to engage questions of dendrotechnology, reforestation, and erosion. She brings the same cultural curiosity and scientific rigor to our seminar, and we are delighted to have her. Please join me in welcoming Dominique Ghiggi.
I would be pleased if you would read the text. It's a text I was writing a long time ago, in 2003, during my Master of Science at ETH, a text of analysis of the text of André Corbeau, The Land as a Palimpsest. What is interesting is that this text was influencing my way of thinking and performing in landscape architecture until today, and I wasn't so aware about that, but preparing this lecture, I was reading again old texts, and what is interesting for me is the part where the land is a result of a long and a slow stratification. You will see why. So you read it. So I called my lecture City Erosion, the Folding of Landscape. It's a translation of the German, the Faltung von der Landschaft. And what is interesting is that I was developing a little bit this kind of thinking about city erosion in 2017, so it's 2 years ago. And I will present some projects, totally four, about that. So what is erosion? Geologically, it refers to a process in the exogenous part of the rock cycle. The erosion is weathered rock and soil, creates and ultimately destroys terrain forms such as mountains and valleys. Erosion is therefore responsible for the morphology of our Earth. Our discipline is concerned with the teaching of form under the influence of time, both on a large and on a small scale. It examines the processes that influence morphology and uses this knowledge to intervene morphologically in short and long term. So I ask you to immerse a little bit in the drawings, because my drawings are better than my words and my English. So I hope I will be able to read very well for you. That's very important now, this drawing here. In the context of physical urbanization and erosion is the phenomenon of the deposition of soil layers, an event that can be perceived daily as a part of cycle on construction sites. Interesting is to rethink the origin of construction material for the city. In terms of sustainability, I propose a closed recycling system of material coming from different construction sites of the city, controlled and managed by the city. Persistent erosion destroys our morphology and landscape, as long as no endogenous processes that cause an elevation of the land surface counteract it. It would be a tectonical force. I call this counteracting forces foldings. So it's the one on your right. For me, the folding of the landscape means the conceptual as well as the physical creation of landscape from the hidden last rock and layers. From the place, we determine which layers are meaningful and can be made visible again. I will illustrate how this happens by means of three foldings of the landscape. So I will speak about, first of all, stratification, afforestation, and infiltration. In stratification, the comparison of geological and anthropogenic processes is interesting. Over time, a sequence of recognizable soil layers emerges, which can be disturbed and reorganized by human intervention. Suddenly, several layers of time appear on the surface. This phenomenon can be observed very well in Rome, where it's known as stratificazione. Old material was reused in order to build something new, and as a result, the old was made visible. What concerns us in the landscape is the recognition of soil layers and their significance in morphological processes. The question arises, how does soil develop? This question emerged in a competition for the design of a city park in Neutraubling, Bavaria, in Germany. Neutraubling is located on a gravel plain between the Bavarian forests and the lower Bavarian hills. The plain was covered by wind deposits during Ice Age. You see it's in the middle there. These deposits form the basis of the fertile soil in this region. So on the left, you see the deposition of the fertile layer by the wind. In the middle, the second one is how it is originally. So you have the gravel and the sand, and above the fertile layer. Then, where it's written Eingriff, what we are doing, we are shifting the layer of the fertile deposits on one side, and then creating, of course, a new landscape. So by simply shifting the layer in the form of erosion and application, new morphological and pedological conditions are created, which then are expressed by the type of planting. Woody plants grow on the fertile soils, and a rough meadow is created on the gravel layer, as you see on the right. In terms of design, a double figure is created. The fertile layer above the gravel and sand is removed and used in the northern half of the park to create a space. This is in contrast to the open space in the southern half, so where it is orange. On this open level, with the exposed gravel and sand as subsoil, a grass savanna is created. On the right, you see also a little bit the topography. So in order to explain that the green is the application, the orange is the removal of this material. And here you see the figure on a plan, and I will show some pictures. So the park meadow, framed by a small wood, becomes the more intensively used part of the park, whereas the grass savanna has a high biodiversity and vastness due to the simple uncovering of the gravel layer. The planting concept is based on the soil composition and the spatial effects of the park. So in green, we see larger specimen trees with root balls, which are planted along the elevations, which are compacted by machine-planted forest trees. And I'm sorry, here. At the edges, there is a large sowing area of woody plant, which is the orange part. And then the yellow one are the grasses of the savanna, of course. So we didn't build the park. We won only the second prize. And I think the municipality were a little bit afraid of telling to the political people we shift a fertile layer of land somewhere else. So that was a little bit the problem. Then a further project on the subject of stratification is the Pfingstweidpark in Zurich. It's again the design of a city park with a special morphological history. We won the competition in 2010 after 4 years of planning. So it's no secret that glaciers have shaped the Swiss landscape. Zurich on the Ice Age, it's a lithography by Oswald Hare, and in the background you see the Alps. The Linth Glacier advanced several times and retreated into the Alps again for a longer period of time, according with a change of cold and warm periods in the rhythm of some 10,000 years. The lake was formed and huge amounts of material were transported by the forces of the glacier and their meltwater. This process took millions of years. From the same angle, this postcard expresses the pride of industry at that time. So, no. E non so come. Ah, yes, perhaps. You will not see the close. But why?
I don't know.
Fine, it doesn't matter.
I'll just sit there.
I mean, so we have been here with this very nice postcard. As you can see, man has been responsible for major changes in the landscape in a relatively short period of time. As most of the industrial cities, Zurich is constantly being demolished and rebuilt, where the removal and deposition of materials are enormous. So we humans are probably the most erosive agent per unit of time. The project about city erosion is located in the former industrial area in Zurich West. You see the Lake of Zurich, and then, of course, Zurich West. Between the right track field of the railway on the south and the course of the river Limmat on the north, so an area of strong change. In Zurich West, apartments, leisure facilities, and jobs for thousands of people are being created in rapid succession. With this background, the Pfingstweidpark, of course, is an important element in the supply of open space in Zurich West. The light gray are all the new buildings, and the black ones you see are industries. So they will be all transformed. And at the period of in the time of the competition, they were planning the light ones, which are all constructed today. So in 2010, the city started the open competition for the public park and for a building for educational facility. When we came to the site, the surrounding area was a huge construction site, as you can see here. So, at that time, the central part of the project area was still occupied by an allotment garden, which was approximately 6 feet lower than the surrounded industrial area. We had wondered whether the project site had been excavated, we discovered the opposite. So here you see the slope. While in the course of industrialization, the terrain was filled up by 6 feet in order to relocate industry and commerce along the railway, the area of the former Pfingstwald remained at the original level. Today's city level is the result of about 2 centuries of overlaid material. The name of the area Pfingstwald actually refers to the way the land was used till the 19th century. In German, Wald means pasture land, and Pfingst from Pfingsten, Pentecost. Following the tradition, countrymen used to bring their cattle to graze on the common land during Pentecost. Here you see, on the left side, you see the place, so this pasture land. Until the 19th century, the Pfingstwald was a damp public pasture land. With the start of industrialization, soil transportation took place. This topographic peculiarity of the site will remain as an element of identity for the future park. The transition from the rather humid green depression of the Pfingstwald in the middle of the park to the rather dry mineral city level takes place via various layers of soil, like you see in the middle sketch. The understanding of the site through a specific time frame and its formation of sediment layers led to the idea of a sunken garden as inspiration for the project. I hope that also the architecture students know what a sunken garden is. It's a paradise with water. So in the middle, the damp, hollow area where a tree grows, whereas the edges are strongly formulated with built angles articulated through the use of walls, stairs, and terraced embankments, so on the west part. Of course, different vegetation types grow also on different soils, because the point is really the soil and the stratification of this soil. Now, that's the plan of the competition. Of course, it developed and got really complicated. Now I will lead you through the park. We will start looking to the embankment on the west, then we will have a look to the meadow and to the wall, and I don't know if that works. No, it doesn't matter, but there is also a very nice fountain. I will show some working models we were constructing in order to really design the space and control it, collage, and then of course pictures of the constructed park. So here you see the model of the embankment. The scale is 1:100, I don't know in feet. You know it perhaps. And it's the wilder part of the park. And here with this perspective. So it should have been, or it is really the wilder part. This is the collage for the competition we made. And here is the constructed part with ruderal vegetation. And it was about collected seeds that was really interesting. Then the meadow with the trees, so with the old oak trees. And here, as it constructed today, as it looked like, behind you see some buildings of Meili Peter architects, Erosion behind. And here, that was the model and the collage of the wall. We wanted really to have a particular wall. We had this very hard cut existing, so the shapes of the park, I have to say, we didn't decide the shape, it was given by the site itself. And how it is constructed today. And then the fountain, of course. Voila. On the left, you see perhaps you know it, the Renaissance building of Erosion. The green behind is the Prime Tower, and it's the tallest building in Zurich. So, as a symbol of the current urban development in Zurich West and along Europa Allee, which is along the rail track, the park has been created as a recycling park. City erosion was the subject of the construction process. To To a large extent, it consists of demolition material from former industrial buildings and platform facilities along the Europa Allee. In addition, humus was transferred from local sports field construction sites. The dead wood was coming from the city forest, and the old public urban furniture of the city was reused. We really tried to make this park from all the materials of the city. Now, I would really like to point out where the Europa lays. It's an urban development area, very big one, and in the moment we were constructing the park, or a little bit, we knew it before, of course, we discovered that we could use this material, which is unusual, and we found it very interesting. So, voilà. Here you see it. It's part of the station of Zurich, and we could use exactly these materials here. And now I would like to show a little video about the construction. The holes are the holes for the trees. The fountain, you see it's made of concrete, so it had to be really compact because it's not natural stone, and it was very complicated to construct it. It was all about reused also concrete material. And here the skeleton of the park, the embankment part. Voila. So as I said, the skeleton of the park is made out of concrete, and we had many different types of beton. So we had the wall, then we had the embankments, we had the pavement, of course, which is 6, and all was constructed with reused concrete. So some pictures again of the construction. We call that the waves of these embankments, which have been constructed at the end by hand, so we could really, model it on site, I would say. They didn't like us so much because we were always remodeling a little bit, but it was fun for us. Then that's material from the station demolition along the Europa Allee, which has been reused in these embankments. And of course also with the seeds and flora which was existing at that time. And here you see how it looks like at the beginning. Today it's completely green. Then the wall, of course, it's a 200-meter long wall, and we decided to construct it with this demolition material, and it's like a modern dry wall. Do you say dry wall? And we made many studies about that, because we want a wall with a particular porosity, and we wanted also that plants could colonize the wall. So here we made some collage also with some colors, and we made a mock-up. Because we didn't want, perhaps I return here, we didn't want that people would design so that the people on the construction site would have a plan for that. So we had really to make some experiments with them. So you see how it's done. The big stones have been put inside randomly, I would say. And that was giving them this expression. We tried also with colors and pigments, but we didn't like that a lot, so we decided for that one, gray. Voila. Then we reused these legs of the benches, the old benches of the city, and made some new benches which are much longer and with a new color, of course. So we were a very big team for us, and yes. Now, after stratification follows afforestation. This folding counteracts surface erosion of the soil. It is based on the fact that trees are the most successful stabilizer and fertilizer of soil. So we traveled to Senegal, in a country located in the transitory dry zone of the Sahel, where for thousands of years the climate has determined the occurrence of the soil covering layer of forest and the shifting of their borders. The cultivation and care of trees was an early form of agriculture in Africa, especially in the transitional area between the desert and the forest. So the project area of the Senou, the botanical refuge, is located on the Massif de Ndias. It's a project I was developing with Jörg Müller for the Centre Mampuya, an association of African dance teacher who decided to develop this project. So you see where it is. It's south from Dakar. I cannot point it, but Dakar is this peninsula going out on the sea. And south of Toubab Dialaw, which is a former fishing village, as you can see here. Perhaps you should remember the shape of this, of the perimeter in red, because in the sketches then I will make it more abstract than that. So the Massif de Ndias is a hilly landscape which today is mainly covered by a dry savanna. A mosaic-like park landscape characterized by grasses, thorn bush, and individual groups of trees. As you see, originally the hills were covered by alternating open forests and forests with a closed tree layer. As a result of the water shortage of the last 50 years and the uncontrolled deforestation, the hills' morphology has changed a lot. Here you see the fertile lowland around the hills, which is parcelled and used for agriculture, crop fields, and pasture here during the rain season, which changes a lot, really. In 2002, Jacqueline Meusch-Mampuya, with Congolese roots, and her partner Urban Freifel from Zurich, founded the Centre Mampuya on the leased land with the intention of revitalizing the degraded hilly landscape in the long term. Senou, the name of the project, is the highest hill on the site and of the entire region. So for 50 years, the land has been devastated by uncontrolled land use, so slash and burn and grazing and deforestation, and the resulting damage caused by wind and precipitation. At certain points, the bare laterite crust emerges. This is a picture of 2002, so of course it was not it was really dry. Due to the migration to the cities and the idealization of urban life in the rural regions, the cultivation of the landscape is neglected and falls into oblivion in the long term. Under these circumstances, the project tries to set clear signals to counteract this tendency, promoting afforestation and agroforestry. Since 2002, through various revitalization measures, the Centre Mampuya has succeeded in becoming an ecological and cultural model for the surrounding region. Senou represents a botanical refuge, a kind of living gene pool for endangered subtropical tree species that would otherwise disappear. A pool of species was created that stabilize the soil and regenerate spontaneously in the project area as well as the entire region. The process is controlled in the tree nursery. Regional seeds are collected and then stored and secured there. Young trees are trained and later transplanted. The following revitalization measures have been implemented in the last 10 years. So fencing of the entire site to prevent uncontrolled grazing and deforestation was the first intervention. It's clear, I think. Then the intensive reforestation around the controlled areas of the housing and around the tree nursery. It's dark green. And the extensive reforestation and natural regeneration supported by soil stabilization. I will show some pictures about that. It's the orange part of the sketch. And the khaki green, it's the introduction of an area for experimental planting and sowing according to topography and without any irrigation. And you see on the right the topography and what we tried to experiment. So the fence, I show some pictures, of course. The cordon pierreux, so the stabilization of the soil, that was in 2002, and that was in 2009 during the dry season, and that was 3 years ago, so you see really the big difference without planting intensively. And then where we planted trees intensively around the housings and around the dance floor area and where the animals are. And then that's interesting, the most important cultivated tree of the savanna is the baobab tree. As the tree is often hollow, it was used by men as a natural water cistern for irrigating the surrounding fields. For this reason, many baobabs were planted by farmers around their villages and also in the Centre Mampuya, as you can see. And they also regenerate, so it's very successful. Here it's one in the tree nursery. Voila. And here you see a picture where it's darker red. It's the area with all the plants after more or less 7 years. Today, it's really, the whole figure is completely afforested. The Centre Mampuya supports also many activities with local people, so conferences of local agroforest engineers, seed collection projects with the maman of the neighboring villages. They collect many leaves from bushes, also for producing teas and other things. Then educational trails for primary school students, which are really happy always to visit the tree nursery. I had a map, but okay, it's not there. And then, of course, seed exchange projects with the farmer of the region. It's here. Here you see the different trails of the one big hill of the Senou. So we have a tree trail where the tree nursery is, the E. We have in a light blue the panorama trail going up to the hill, the recreation trail in dark blue, going to the dance floor and to other facilities, and then, of course, the adventure trail on the edges. So it's really a beautiful park landscape. Voila. So we are reaching the last folding, and it's about the infiltration of water, which is a big issue in the city.
J'ai descendu dans mon jardin pour y cueillir du romarin. Pas du tout. Chaque février, c'est du pareil au même. Que d'eau, s'écrient tous les Macmahons de Villeneuve-Saint-Georges qui décampent en vitesse parce que sur eux s'abat l'avalanche de neige métamorphosée par...
It's just to show you how water can surprise you. So, in the cities, we have to deal with the natural processes of water, of course. And the development of big water infrastructures has been very dominant in our landscape. So the last project, La Macchina Meravigliosa, is a more conceptual interpretation of the folding infiltration. It is a temporary installation which emerged from the Lausanne Jardin competition in 2009. And we won the second prize. We are Carol Anton, Corinna Ruek, and I. And we had the chance to build it. At the beginning of the competition, different locations were available for selection. We had chosen the underworld of the metro line M2 to contrast the above-ground garden world with an underground garden world. The history of the hidden garden world begins with the drilling of the new metro line through various layers of rock, some of which are interrupted by a strong and water-bearing layer. This fact led to this line being strongly concreted, and in comparison to the other lines, represents a very massive infrastructure. So normally metro stations are rather nonsensical places. We wanted to bring life underground, especially in the water-bearing layer, to light in a simple way through a temporary intervention. The result was a meditative projection of a moss dancing in the water using something very easy, an overhead projector. So that was the material, the moss, the smallest aquarium we found, the projector, of course. And we had to choose the moss. We had to choose the places where to project it in the metro station, and we got a projector. And we had also to choose a kind of moss which is light, which is performing in the water, and which is also growing very fast, because we wanted to visualize this aspect of the growing and of the time. So, as you can see here, a series of the growing moss. So the development of this intervention required various experiments, which we recorded in some videos. Here we are in a metro. It's not really a metro station, but it's an underground station of the S-Bahn in Zurich before going to Lausanne. We tried.
No.
So here,
You mean
example,
it's growing grass on the... Huh?
I see what you see.
here on the basement.
That's great. It's nice.
The conditions of our metro station were completely different, so we had to change that. The people, and so we had to develop a structure for that, a protection for the projector, also in order not to disturb people, and we were visualizing that with collage. And below you see the conditions of the metro station in Lausanne. It's the Maurice Béjart metro station, which was also nice because, you know, he's a dance choreographer, and we were projecting a dancing moss. Hopefully he's happy with, or was happy with that. And we discovered that was our solution, so an oil tank. We could choose the envelope, so the exterior part of the oil tank or the interior one. And because of the size of the projector and everything, how to handle it, maintain it during the year we were projecting that, we decided to choose the exterior oil tank, and it was also interesting to see how it looked like with the light. So I think it's very nice. We had to make, of course, the drawings of the projector, and because we realized that the wall we were projecting on was not completely perpendicular, we had to make a distortion also of the moss. So it's the blue-green part is distorting. So we had to put it up there and to fix it also. make a hole on the oil tank. Thank you. In Senegal. Senegal, yes. That's progressing and it will not stop, of course. No, but the part of planning and is finished, but they are always developing more projects about that. So it will not stop, of course, most of all because of the climate change. It will always be interesting to experiment with the seeds, yes.
Recycling park project, you showed a little bit of the wall experimentation with the recycled material.
Yes.
But the wave element, can you talk a little bit more about that? Was that also recycled?
That was, yes, so we call the béton RCB béton. I don't know here how you call that, but you can implement it with recycled material from other béton, which you are demolishing. So it's, of course, you have, it's a different technique, and we had to add some more fluid things, but we had also the something to give really the structure and the basically height, and then the last part was model it, then cover it and remodel it, yes. But it was, they took, I think, 1 month. So the enterprise to understand how to construct it, because we were not always happy at the beginning, and it's concrete is concrete. It's not you have to find it out. Yes, but we, of course, because it's shaped, we have to shape, of course, but it's really going with the topography, and we wanted to create different terraces and create a space for ecology there.
Were there any limits on its structural ability? None of them look very tall as far as how they retain grade. They're all pretty low.
They are, yes, they are from 20 centimeters high to 1 meter. So it's, yes. And then, of course, at the end, we had always more wishes. It was nice to make like the maquillage, so to then make different surfaces. So we have rougher ones, we have really levigated ones, and also to play a little bit with the concrete. We could make some cuts, for example, in the béton where the playground was, or we decided to make where the rail station were in the béton inside, that there were really many details with this béton wave. We cut some holes. We were thinking they will be very happy to put some water and some beers inside. So it's really a beautiful material, because at the end you can make a lot of things if you don't have any steel. And we didn't have any steel because it wasn't so big. Yes. And the wall, the 200-meter long wall, I have to say there was a wall behind that because of the other parcel. Or lot, and so we didn't have to make such a massive wall, but big enough to put inside this rocks. So it was about 40 centimeters without being a statical wall. Si capisce? Okay. Yes.
In that same area, did you plant any material, or was it entirely based on the seed bank of the rural vegetation?
So it was a mixture. Of course, it was more complex than to say we put the gravel from the Europalle, but it was a mixture of that material and then a collection of seeds from the region around Zurich. And we, at the beginning, we started to, you have like terraces, so islands, and we had a color concept telling which kind of colors would grow at the beginning, but then of course with time it would mix together. So as you have seen a picture, this ruderal vegetation was really a mixture of that. But so it was all about sowing, and we planted only the trees. Otherwise, we didn't plant anything. And of course, the meadow, which is in part an extensive meadow and an intensive meadow and then a sport field meadow. So it was, yes. Yes?
I was just wondering if you would be willing to go back and show your first slide with the writing on it?
You want to read the beginning?
Yes.
Yes? We can discuss that. I only want that you get the point of the foldings, because I like the foldings. Voila. Yes.
These are very different types of projects, one from the other.
Yes.
I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the way you approach different projects in your office, and also the fact that we talked about the fact that most of the projects that you do are competitions, and how
Yes.
different it is from the model that we have in America. So if you could talk a little
So,
bit about
yes.
the parts.
But then we return, because you want to read it, then you will... Ah, okay. Vabbè. Yes, most of the projects are a result of a competition. The good thing is that you can choose really what you want to do. You have to win them, of course, but it's very different than if you have to, yes, to say yes because you need really to work. And about the approach, it's we learned, and or it's, yes, I think I learned it also as a biologist, really to observe a site first of all. And when I observe a site, I really want to know everything. So the geology, the morphology, the water, and I always try to find out what is the most important part of that processes for this site. Of course, also with the interaction of men. So we are a part of this process. For example, in the project of the Pfingstweid Park, the fact that the lower level was a pasture land, and then we constructed the morphology, the topography, so the industry was doing that. It's only to say it's not about natural processes, we are part of that. But we discovered, of course we have many more projects than that, but there is always one important component. There is, for example, also housings where we were designing the water, so the water infiltration, which usually you are canalizing all the water and you don't see it. We want to see it because, for example, the soils are really impermeable. No, come si dice? The water is not allowed to pass through, and so it becomes an issue. And everywhere or there is a project close to a wood, and the wood is the very strong element of this landscape, then we would like to work with the wood and how it develops, and how is it possible to have a wood or the idea of a wood which is then maintained. So we really try to work with the place, I would say. That's the beginning. And so it's, yes.
And between the biologists and the designers in the office and the architects, how is it?
But what was interesting, so my career started with Carole Anton. We made also the master together. And she's an architect, or she was an architect, I was a biologist. And so we really could implement our work. She had more Yes, she constructed more, and I was more in the processes and in the vegetation, and that was really a good implementation of our work. And then suddenly it was interesting to see that I was much more free in constructing, because I wanted to experiment it, and she was always asking more things about vegetation. And if you are coming from another discipline, the interesting thing is that you bring something new, and you discover it, and then it begins to be interesting, of course. Yes. Yes?
Dominique, I actually wonder if perhaps you could clarify what you mean by the holdings in the landscape.
Porcanak. Yes. So that's very important. So I began telling that erosion is destroying and creating landscape. And now I mean that in a really physical way, but also in a conceptual way. So when you destroy it, you then have to counteract it. So that's the folding, the moment where, for example, in the infiltration, the Macchina Meravigliosa, it was about to showing this layer inside a metro station, which is completely constructed in this underground world. So I bring a layer, I decide which layer I want to make visible. So also really in terms of perception of where we are. We are in a metro station, but we want to know that there is water. And then I work with a plant, because the plant is animating everything, and I know that cryptogams are able to be in a place without any light. So that is the conceptual one. In the stratification, it's about, for example, of the park. There are many components, but the most obvious is that there is demolition because of development close to your site. And you take this material and construct something new. You could see it in this way. But then there is also the thing that about our processes forming a landscape, as I was saying, the fixed Weide, the lower layer, which is the original one, and then we put some more material, so it's very physical. And in the afforestation, of course, it's the same. You counteract erosion, and that's really the erosion of all these landscapes in the Sahel. So because of the climate, not the climate change, it's something happening since a long time. But so for me it was I wanted to find like a line of thinking and performing in the landscape, which has really to do with the landscape, but which then, if you see this drawing, is forming a new one from inside, so from the place. And with drawings, perhaps it's telling you more than my words. As I said, I'm better in drawing. And I'm not an artist.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.